Hey guys, this is Erin and Geoffrey. Geoffrey's here.
Hey guys.
We are going to go through a few of our favorite images. We picked out a handful of them, and we're going to edit each one with one of the presets that we put together. Actually, Geoffrey is going to be doing that, and I am going to sit and watch and cheer it on.
All right. So I thought maybe before we get into the editing part, we would just talk a little bit about our preset, why we developed it, and what we wanted to accomplish. And so we had a couple of goals in mind when we developed our preset. One is that we wanted it to feel old. We wanted a nostalgic feeling in our photos. And so that's something that I think most photographers appreciate, is a good sense of nostalgia. Now, we didn't want to necessarily emulate any particular film. We just wanted the photos to have a nostalgic feel to them. We also really like black and white images. And sometimes I would find myself converting an image to black and white just because of the way it felt. So we wanted color images that kind of had those same feels as black and white. And so I think we accomplished that with our Stonemarsh series. So let's get into it. You'll see here that we have 7 different presets. Now, all of these presets do behave very differently. However, we built them to be very consistent with each other. So the main difference is that they work, they're very environmental, for example. And so different presets behave differently in different environments. And so we'll kind of talk about that. So let's start with this first photo. And I think the SW01 would look great here on this image. And so you'll see when I clicked on it, it lowered the exposure just a little bit. And as it is, we already shoot a couple of stops underexposed. You don't have to do that. We do it because our cameras have the maximum amount of dynamic range when they're underexposed just a little bit. And so that's why we do it, but it's not necessary for using these presets. And we clicked on the preset, it lowered it just a little bit more. That's okay. It does that because of how the tone curve is built. But feel free to just go ahead and bring that exposure back up to where it needs to be.
Yeah, right about there.
All right, let's let this photo come back into focus. Okay, so I think it might just still be a little bit too cool.
Yeah, let's warm it up. Just because we shot this during the late evening, and I kind of want to give it that romantic, fun, beachy feel. That's because that's what was going on.
Yeah, what do you think about right there?
I really like that, and if maybe if we could add a gradient filter over on each side of the photo, just one on each side, just to kind of bring the attention a little bit more to her. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. So our preset does away with any lens distortion and barrel vignetting. Sometimes, though, there needs to be a little bit of a vignette. So it's common that we'll come back in with the gradient filter and kind of darken the edges just a little bit. All right, so let's move on to the next image. Now, this is an interior shot of a bride in her wedding gown. And so I would say, just right off the cuff, that I think the Softy SW04 is going to work great for this.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it lowered the exposure just a little bit, but that's okay because we can bring it right back up.
Yeah, maybe warm it up just a little bit. Yeah, I really love what the Softy does to these images, especially indoor images too. It just makes it feel so romantic, like truly. And if Geoffrey, if you can go to the original image here, you'll see once it comes up. Yeah. So this curtain you see on the right-hand side, you can see it's a little blown out. We have some harsh light coming in there. Not really on her, but on one of the backgrounds.
The curtain itself.
Yeah. But what Softy does, once you apply it and you can mess with the exposure and whatnot, it kind of washes out that harsh lighting. It just evens it out. It gives it that nice romantic feel that this room deserves. And it makes her look amazing. Your eye just goes straight to her. It does not go to that hot spot anymore.
Yeah, so this preset was built to be a very, very soft, very muted preset. Not flat, but muted. And so even in very harsh light situations, this preset usually does a very good job of taking care of some of the harsher highlights.
Cool.
All right, so let's move on.
Oh, I love these guys so much.
Yeah.
I asked them to walk towards me and give me like maximum amount of sass, and she just like owned it.
So much sass right there. Okay, so we put this photo in because one thing that I think a lot of photographers struggle with, including us, is greens. Greens can be tough. Sometimes greens become a little bit too lime.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that all of our presets do is just kind of take the lime of the greens down just a little bit. And so this photo isn't terrible, but let's use SW01 on this so you can see what it does.
Yeah, so it desaturates the greens just a little bit, but you're not losing the feel of the greens. Down here in the south, we deal with a lot of lime greens in the trees and in the grass around us. So we really like this preset because it gives those greens just the amount of desaturation that they need without completely like washing them out.
Yep. So all I did was brighten the exposure just a tad, warm it up a tad, and I think that over here in this area of the image, it's a little too bright. So we'll bring back a little bit of vignetting there, hopefully not too heavy-handed. So let's get this guy softer, and then maybe a little on this side as well. All right, so I would say I would call that finished. Erin, would you do anything to it?
I love it. I think they look fantastic.
All right, so let's move on to this next image. This is an interior shot. Erin, which preset would you use on this one?
I think Bumblebee might be pretty cool. Might
Okay.
be a little
All right,
a
so
bold look. So.
Bumblebee is one of our more contrasty images, and I'll just explain the difference because we have two. So SW05 Bumblebee and SW05 Bumblebee 2. The only difference between the two is how they handle the yellows. So the first one is a little bit more yellow than the second one, and that's basically it. So let's bring this exposure right back up. And there we go. So this one has beautiful highlights that pop, and then the shadows kind of fall into complete darkness.
Yeah. And I like it too. I feel like it goes well with this photo because her dress is bold. It's a bold and it's different. So I feel like this preset gives the dress and her look justice.
Yeah, and it also works really well anytime there's any yellow in the image. And so there is some yellow over here in this upper right-hand corner. And so Bumblebee just kind of makes the yellows pop and stand out.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, so this is a photo that Erin took out here in this field. And so I think that what we would do is use SW03 Ruby on this one. And again, the preset will lower the exposure just a little bit. That's okay. Just bring it right back up. The Ruby is really good about making any reds in the image kind of stand out and bring life to that. Yeah. So what do you think, Erin? Would you do anything different?
Well, obviously their skin tone is a little more red. So let's bring the tint down just a little bit, if you want. Let's come over here. Just bring that down just a little bit. And then maybe you just bump the exposure up just a tad, just to bring a little bit more life to their face. Perfect.
Yeah, that looks good.
There. And then maybe a gradient, just to kind of hone in on them.
Kind of out of focus.
Oh, no, it's coming back.
All right. So, yeah, like Erin said, their skin tone wasn't perfect from one click. We did make all of our presets to retain skin tones as best that they can. But every camera might record white balance just slightly different, and so it's pretty common that we'll go through our exposure and white balance and just make subtle corrections. Okay, so this is another example of a photo that can be very green. We do have some limeish greens up here. So let's go ahead and see how this looks with SW01 applied on it.
Let's bring the exposure down just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we can warm it up a little bit too.
There we go. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I love that. Those two cuties. Aw.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so that looks pretty good. Here's the before, and here is the after. And so hopefully we kept those greens in their place. Okay, so here is the next image. We have a thing for images with a lot of negative space. And in this case, I think I would use the softy on this just to kind of have a really clean, even exposure image. And let me just warm it up a little bit. She's a little too cool.
Yeah, softy always also works really well on cloudy days as well. We were outside, the wind was blowing, and there was a storm rolling in, and it just works. It makes her look awesome. I really like softy in this environment too.
All right, let's move on. So here's a photo that we took of some good friends of ours in Yosemite. This was one of our favorite moments because they wanted to stand out on this cliff, which is about an 8,000 foot drop, guys. It's really deceiving because these trees down here are actually redwood trees, so they're quite tall, and it creates this weird optical illusion. But Caitlin and Thad were brave enough to come and stand on this cliff and make this pretty incredible image. And so let's see, Erin, what preset would you apply on this one?
Well, I love the sunlight coming in, so to make that pop, I really think Ruby is going to do it justice.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, look at that. And so Ruby makes any reds in the photo kind of stand out. There's a lot of contrast in Ruby, and so
That's probably good right there. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. All right.
Cool.
So let's move on. Yeah. This is a photo of more of our friends. I think the Ruby would be perfect on this one as well.
Yeah. So we hiked down to the bottom of a waterfall, and the environment, like the colors that we were seeing, just had changed completely. It went from really warm up top where we were to begin with, and we went down to the falls. It got really icy cold looking. So we wanted to warm it up just a little bit. So let's see. So we applied the Ruby, and let's bring this back up on tint. Perfect. And maybe just kind of take down the temperature just a little bit. Oh, sorry. Just jumping around. Perfect. Like that. And then just bump up the exposure a little bit. Give her some light on her face. Awesome. I think that looks really good.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so here's the before coming up. There's the before, and here is the after. So again, it kind of creates that nostalgic look. Yet it doesn't look like film. It still looks very digital, but it just feels old. All right, so let's move on to this photo. Now this photo is backlit, so a couple of options here. Like we mentioned before, the softy works really well in backlit images, but I think I'm going to go with earthbound on this one. Yeah, there we go. And the exposure back up.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
And so a couple of things, the white-ish or the light rock down here might be a little distracting to some people, but you could always bring the exposure of that back down by just adding a lower vignette on this image without affecting the top.
Yeah. And maybe we can bring up the exposure just a little bit.
Yeah, good call.
Get her skin tone. There we go, perfect.
All right, there we go. So before and after, here we go. Here's before and after.
I love that.
Okay, so we threw this photo in because although you can't see it in the image, we took this in Utah where everything is very, very tan and
very red.
Yeah, very red, and it tends to warm up the photo maybe just a little bit too much. It's not a white balance issue; it's an issue with the colors. And so our preset, the big blue, we made this preset to work in a couple of ways. One, to cool things off just a little bit without affecting the white balance. And two, to work really well with photos that were taken during blue hour, if you still want to retain those blue tones. And so one click, and then we bring up our exposure just a little bit. There we go.
Let's keep going just a little bit. Perfect. Awesome. And I love it. And you still have your reds in the environment as well, and a little bit in their skin tone, but it doesn't make them look like their skin is burnt or anything like that. So I think that looks pretty good, just like that. And it adds a little bit of pop too. I like that about Big Blue. It's got some contrast and some kick to it.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so let's look at this next photo. Now this photo is kind of unique because it's a tilt shift image. And so let's see, with this environment, Bumblebee is going to work really nicely. It brings out the sky really well. But you'll notice that when I bring up the exposure, the edges did not lighten very much, like they do on some of our other photos. The only reason is because this was taken with a tilt shift image, which is a manual image, and manual images have this vignette at the bottom that can't be corrected in Lightroom. The only way to correct it would be to come in with a lighter gradient, or you can go into detail and apply a reverse gradient. So that's why this is a little darker. But what I would do is I would also darken the sky just a little bit, not too much, to bring back a little bit of the colors that we had in those highlights. And that's probably a little bit too far, so I'm going to reduce this.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, there we go. That's
it
a little
feels
bit
cinematic
better.
too.
Yeah.
It's cool.
All right. And I would call that good.
All right. This is one of our good friends as well. We did an in-home session. I really love Earthbound at SW01 on this one. So we'll just take this and we'll bring up the exposure a little bit. Perfect. And then just a little bit on the highlights, just to kind of bring some light to their face. And I like that. It's one click and a couple of, maybe one gradient here just because of the white pillow. But I love it just like that. It feels natural. It feels, their skin tones match their natural tones. And this preset just enhances that a good bit. So I say it's great.
All right, and so we threw this image in to illustrate how some of our black and whites work. Sometimes it's tempting to take a wider shot, and then maybe when we finally see that shot in Lightroom or Photoshop, we realize, well, maybe we went a little bit too wide because of some distracting elements. And so I think that this has potential to be a beautiful photo, but there are a few things in it that make it distracting, such as the lighting up here and the mixed lighting between this level and that level. So our black and whites kind of solve this issue, and I'll illustrate. So SW06 and SW07 really exposed for the skin tones. And so let's go with SW06 here.
Yeah, I like that. It's really moody.
Yeah, you can see that her dress, of course her dress is white, so it's going to stand out, but even her skin is still kind of coming off the background. And so I would maybe reduce the blacks just a little bit so you can still see some detail in this. And of course I probably would go ahead and crop out this light from up here. But yeah, I would call this image good. So because even though it's wide, really your eye goes to your subject right away.
Cool, I like it.
All right.
And last but not least, I think Ruby would look good on this one.
Yeah.
Bring out the, not Bumblebee, Ruby.
Yeah, let's go with Ruby.
There we go. Yeah, it just makes the sun just pop. Like it. Sorry, it's going through each of the presets that you clicked on.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah, so what it's doing here, it's really bringing out the red in this rock. Remember, Ruby works really well when there's red in the image, and so it really complements the red that's here in this rock already. And so as you saw, we accidentally kind of clicked on a couple of presets. They all look very different. And so not every preset is going to work in every environment. We built these presets to be consistent with a style. And so it might be that you have to use a different preset, or at least critique one of the presets to work in different environments. And that's one thing that we wanted to say too. We built these presets as basically a starting point. We took care of everything in the tone curve, HSL and split toning and all that stuff. But feel free to go in and adjust it, make it your own, resave it. And yeah, so I think that's it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up then.
All right, yeah, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email us. Other than that, have a great day.
Yeah, bye guys.
Bye-bye.